movie today is based on a true story of a person who was involved in an accident and stabbed by the people closest to him. The movie begins with a group of friends on a trip to a house in the mountains. There are Metin, his fiancée Eileen, and Saleh and his fiancée. They decide to go hunting, and he suggests that they split up and meet up at the end of the day, and they do. Then Metin sees a prey standing in the trees, so he shoots it and kisses it. Then we move to 5 months later at Saleh's house, who was with them on the hunting trip. We see him sitting in a wheelchair, unable to speak or move, and she sits in front of his mother, angry and full of hatred towards his friend. Ever since she knew that they left him at the time of the accident, they never visited him or asked about him. We also learn that his fiancée left him and got engaged to his friend Metin after he left his fiancée Eileen. She starts swearing and saying in front of her son that she will take revenge on all of them for what they did to him. When she sees her, she performs black magic and strange ritual and recites spells. Then we move to Metin's house, where he and his new fiancée are living. We see his first fiancée, Ellen, in a state of depression and devastation because he left her and took his friend's fiancée only a month after the incident. Metin receives a call from someone. We learn from their conversation that he is the construction foreman. He tells him that the municipality is going to demolish his building and that he must come to it as soon as possible. Metin leaves his fiancée and quickly goes to the site. But when he arrives, he finds no one. He calls the foreman to ask him about the call he made. The foreman tells him that he never called him. He doesn't understand what's happening to him. He decides to leave, but he hears a voice coming from inside the building. So he goes inside to see what's going on. While he's inside, he hears a voice coming from under the dirt, calling him and asking him for help. Metin goes and removes the dirt. He notices that there is a coffin. As soon as they open it, they find the body of his friend Saleh inside. He looks very terrifying, and he stands behind an old man who is very scared and tries to step back. But suddenly, his mother Saleh appears to him. After a few seconds, everything suddenly disappears, as if he was hallucinating. At this time, she is at home and she starts hearing a voice from the living room. She gets up to see what that voice is. Suddenly, Saleh appears in his terrifying form, but it turns out to be a dream, and she wakes up from it, and she finds Metin sitting next to her on the bed. She asks him about Saleh. He tells her that he doesn't know anything about him since the accident, and it's clear that he's jealous. He asks her if she still loves him. She tells him that she feels guilty towards him. He tells her that Saleh was his friend for more than 12 years and that he is the nightmare of his life. He wants to go back to his normal life because he's afraid that they will know that he took his fiancée away from him. Because if this happens and he thinks of killing them both, he has no right to defend himself. At this time, Eileen is sitting in her house, but suddenly there is a knock on the door and she opens it. She finds Saleh and his mother standing in front of the door, but it is black. She's surprised when she finds that Saleh is standing on his feet, but they are not carrying anything. They leave immediately, so she is surprised and closes the door. But when she looks, she finds that Saleh and his mother are in the house and they look scary. They approach her and say incomprehensible things to her. They scream and disappear as if she was hallucinating. The next day, she goes to Metin's house to take her things from him, but she opens the door and throws her out. We see that at this time, she was preparing something specific and asking the maid to come to her at night to take care of her son. After that, she returns to her house and finds that the bird that came out is in the cage and flew away. So she fears that it has escaped from the house. But then she hears a voice coming from the basement in the house. So she goes down to look for him. But suddenly, Saleh attacks her in the same terrifying way. He grabs her hand and pulls her while she screams and shouts. But after a while, he suddenly disappears and she's imagining things. Her neighbor comes after hearing her screams and asks her about the bird. But the strange thing is that the bird is in the cage at this time and it is always there. She knows that Iran came to take her things, so he goes down at night and collects her things to give them to her. But suddenly, he hears a voice coming from the garden of the house and comes out to see what is in it. And suddenly she comes out from under the ground and starts pulling his hand under the dirt and looks in front of him in a terrifying way. And she starts telling him that Saleh will never forgive us. But suddenly everything disappears and we see Turka. She went back home and brought a witch with her to do everything for her. And it becomes clear that the matter is serious because this person warns her that if she gets into trouble because of this session, he has nothing to do with. He asks her for a huge sum of money and she pays him the amount, telling her that this amount is very little compared to what she will learn now. He takes out a book full of magic, spells, and incomprehensible things. He tells her that in order to apply the methods in it correctly, she must offer a person as a sacrifice. Then we see Eileen scolding him and blaming him for leaving her and taking his friend's fiancé. She tells him that he did not ask about her or her feelings or think about his friend who did not ask about him. Then we move to Turkan. When she is drugged with tea for the service she provides, we learn that she decided to offer her as a sacrifice to the jinn. When the maid falls asleep, she puts her on the wheelchair. She takes her to the secret room in the house. She opens the book and starts to implement what is in it. She ties the maid's tongue to Salih's. She keeps saying spells and spells to summon the jinn. But suddenly, she notices that the jinn she summoned got out of control and killed the maid and disappeared. Then we see Mateen returning home. Suddenly, his car breaks down. He gets out to see Shaba and starts hearing strange voices and whispering in a disturbing way. When he gets down, he finds Saleh in front of him in a terrifying form and opens the car door. At this time, Mateen gets in and flees the place immediately. She sees Saleh and his mother with scary people and they all agree to get rid of her as she gets very scared and screams. Suddenly, she wakes up from her sleep and is dreaming. After that, he returns to his house, but suddenly, while he's sitting, he hears a sound. So he gets up and goes out of the window and sees Saleh with the old man. And he expects that everything he sees is just a hallucination and starts talking to himself. After that, we move to the wizard who was sitting with Turkey and she tells him what happened. He tells her that the jinn rejected the maid as a sacrifice and that she must find another one as soon as possible. Otherwise, the magic will turn against her and her son. The next day, she goes to Saleh's house and by chance sees her picture in the trash next to the house. Turkey opens the door and goes inside and talks to her and tells her that she feels guilty because it has been a long time since she asked about Saleh, and she tells her that he left her. After a while, she is surprised that he proposed to Saleh's fiancée only a month after the incident, and she apologizes because she did not ask about Saleh. Then, she tells her that she's standing when she drinks. At this time, Saleh is trying to get rid of to remind her that what his mother is drinking is because he put a drug in it for her, but she does not pay attention and drinks and faints. We learn that Turkey has begun to offer sacrifices instead of the maid who died. Saleh refuses what his mother does. At night, her mother goes to visit her at home and is surprised by her visit while they are talking. She asks her to go to the bathroom, but she takes a long time, so she's surprised and goes to check on her. She finds her sitting next to the fire in the living room. Her mother tells her that his mother knew that she is engaged. Then we see her holding the branches of a tree and she keeps breaking them. But the same thing happens. Her body is the one that breaks with every branch she breaks. Scary sounds start coming out of her and she falls to the ground telling her mother that this is Saleh's punishment. Then, we see her phone ringing and it is her mother who is calling her. We learn that the one who was with her in the house is one of the jinn and embodied in the image of her mother. Then we see Metin and he looks like he is unconscious. He goes in his car and stops in a place in the forest. He starts hearing hallucinations and whispers. He returns and sees Saleh and the old man with. He starts to imagine that he is burying the old man under the dirt. Turkan takes him in her son's wheelchair and he is unable to move at all. Then we see the old man with a knife and he cuts a rope and cuts wood on Metin and he dies immediately. We will see if she will repeat the rituals she did with the maid, but this time with Eileen in the same secret room. She asks the jinn to open a passage for her to the other world, and everything in the room shakes. Suddenly, we find Saleh standing on his feet, holding a pair of scissors and stabbing his mother. We go back in time to the time of the incident and see what happened when those who asked to separate from each other met at the end of the day. We see who decided to shoot the prey they found, but when he accidentally shoots the old man in the head. This man is the same man in the stupid place they are in. He is the same man he saw with Saleh's ghost. At this time, we see Saleh come and tell him that he should call the police and the ambulance. He testifies with him that he hit this man by mistake, but he tells him in the head again, and the bullet lodges in Saleh's head. And here the story of the movie ends. If you like it, don't forget to like it, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell button to receive all that is new.